Hello to all 1000 PS fans and to all who are going to be fans after this video, hopefully. The brand new Suzuki GSX-8S first test ride. I'm really happy to have done this first test ride today. And yeah, I'm going to tell you everything about the new bike now. There can't be enough motorcycle categories, Suzuki must have thought, and with the new 83 horsepower GSX-8S, it has pushed a completely redesigned naked bike between the upper entry level and mid-range models. In terms of design, engine and electronics, it leaves hardly a stone unturned. The only question is, how well does the new Golden Mean from Japan work? Actually, a new naked bike in the upper entry level class, or the lower middle class, whatever you want to call them, should not have triggered any exuberant interest in me. Although I always come to the conclusion that just this, supposedly only for inexperienced interesting class, offers a lot of fun for relatively manageable money. Well, the interest of the rest of the 1000 PS crowd was then anyway not so great, so I could actually test out the three considerations I had in advance at the very first driving contact. So there were three good reasons why I wanted to be the first to sit on the GSX-8S. And, above all, ride it. Point 1, for the first time in a long time. It is a completely new design that has nothing in common with any other naked bike from Suzuki. In other words, a proverbial design from a blank sheet of paper. Point 2, it uses the same engine as the Suzuki V-Strom 800DE, which I also had the pleasure of testing. But in the 8S the engine has to haul almost 30 kilos less. Point 3, I already had the pleasure of testing the GSX-8S's direct and probably toughest competitor, the new Honda CB750 Hornet, last fall. So the comparison more than lends itself. The first time we got on the bike, all the controls were right where they should be and did exactly what they were supposed to do. So clutch and throttle can be operated quite smoothly, and the seating position conveys from the beginning what I expected for the end of the day. You sit comfortably upright. And, apart from the lack of wind protection, you can definitely take the GSX-8S on slightly longer tours. Even the narrow saddle offers decent comfort, and is by no means hard as the sporty cut might suggest. This brings us to the engine after the first few kilometers. The 776 cubic inline 2 produces a negligible amount less horsepower than on the V-Strom 800DE, 83 horsepower at 8,500 RPM, due to the modified exhaust solution. The maximum torque of 78 Nm is available at 6,500 revs, and apart from briefly trying out the two driving modes B and C, each with smoother power delivery, at the beginning of the ride, I stayed with the sharpest mode for the rest of the day because it's not unpleasantly sharp either. After all, anyone expecting a power explosion out the top on the GSX-8S will have to rethink. This power plant is designed for homogeneous power delivery and marches confidently up from very low thanks to superbly tuned ride-by-wire system without pitching or shaking. In the mid-range up to around 8,000 RPM, there is also a lot of power, but up to the limiter at around 10,000 revolutions per minute, it remains linear. So if you need a bit of a kick at the top, you won't get it. But I see it very pragmatically. I never once got into the predicament of rattling into the limiter. If I hadn't wanted to test where it intervenes, I would never have needed it. And so I use the rev range up to 8,000 RPM, which is enough anyway, and enjoy the crisp, standard quickshifter that engages the gears perfectly both up and down. So the power plant really is the harbinger that the new GSX-8S doesn't want to be an aggressive deal, but quite the opposite, an accessible naked bike that then also presents itself as extremely balanced in terms of handling. At 202 kilos ready to ride, it is certainly not an ultra lightweight, which surprises me a bit for a completely redesigned, modern bike. But the few kilos more have obviously gone into the decent stability quite well. The GSX-8S is also agile in turns, but not as nimble. That may also be due to the slightly wider 180 divided by 70-17 tire format at the rear instead of a 160. But in truth, a certain stability should still be worth something. At least the engineers have made what I think is a very fine compromise between sportiness and comfort in the suspension elements. Since the front 41 fork from KYB is not adjustable at all, and the monoshock, also from KYB only in the spring preload, I am pleased with the pronounced comfort of the chassis, which also on the partly very bad bumpy roads in France the bumps ironed away surprisingly well. It may be that the fork dips a bit too much under braking for one or the other sporty enthusiast, but I'm personally happy that the butt doesn't hurt even after a whole day in the saddle. And as already mentioned, this makes the GSX-8S a loyal companion on somewhat longer tours. The relatively long wheelbase of 1465mm also shows that Suzuki is not aiming for an ultra-handy moped, but wants to offer serious stability. I look at the braking system of the new GSX-8S with one smiling and one crying out. The 310 double-disc system with radially mounted Nissin brake calipers grips really well, has an excellent pressure point, and a great initial bite. However, when braking, admittedly very ambitiously, before corners, the ABS interferes again and again with hasty regulation. The good brake would therefore have deserved a somewhat more restrained ABS. The rest of the electronics, however, I consider to be of high quality and quite sufficient. A three-way adjustable and disengageable traction control is, at least in the drive with the universal Dunlop Sport Max Road Sport 2 tires, primarily a safety feature for the Psyche, but certainly an advantage in the wet. The three selectable riding modes, on the other hand, are an interesting feature for novice riders because of the homogeneous power delivery of the engine. And the quick shifter, which has also already been praised, makes the new GSX-8S not only sportier, but also more comfortable. Finally, the really easy to read and clear 5 inches color TFT display and the electronic features are finished. No connectivity, no error display for the navigation system, but therefore no difficulties in operation. If you need that and more, you'll have to look half a class higher. Instead, I rate the GSX-8S as a really honest naked bike that I think has what it takes to be a really good all-rounder. Interestingly, the aggressive and wonderfully stylish looks suggest more sportiness. But if someone is looking for an accessible naked bike that doesn't have to look staid, the 8S is probably just the right one, especially since the price is also an honest offer in German-speaking countries. In Germany, a Suzuki GSX-8S costs €8,900, in Austria €9,800 and in Switzerland 10,000 francs. For such a well-balanced machine, a quite appropriate price, even if at the latest now the comparison with the Honda Hornet 750 lines up. That wants to spit with a lower cost price of the GSX-8S in the soup. But if you consider that you have to pay extra for the quickshifter on the Honda, the difference becomes manageable, at least in Germany and Austria. Whether the new Hornet now actually has noticeably more power and is more agile thanks to the 160 rear tire, I do not dare to judge. It is now over 4 months ago that I was able to ride the Hornet, and a judgment from afar I consider unserious and also unfair. In terms of design, the Suzuki has the nose in front of me, the rest will soon be clarified in a direct duel. Conclusion: already the name GSX-8S should make clear that there is something completely new. Because of tradition it should have been called GSX-800. But the package is well put together if you are looking for a balanced all-round naked bike. The seating position also allows for longer distances. The chassis comfort irons out bumps sovereignly. The engine basically does everything right, but those with sporty ambitions will miss the final kick in the upper rev range. The electronics are straightforward, but complete, and the brakes are really good. Only the ABS interferes a little and occasionally regulates unnecessarily early when braking hard. Overall, however, a properly balanced naked bike that makes something visually neat.